Christmas was supposed to be the warmest night of the year. That's what people said. That's what the lights, the music, and the laughter across the city tried to prove. Streets were glowing with decorations, houses sparkled like dreams, and families rushed toward celebrations with gifts in their hands and smiles on their faces. But at the very end of Maple Street, where the road was broken and the streetlights barely worked, one house stood completely dark. No lights, no music, no warmth. That house belonged to Grandma. Inside, the air was cold enough to hurt. Grandma sat quietly on an old wooden chair, wrapped in a thin, faded shawl that could no longer protect her from the freezing night. The electricity had been cut off weeks ago, and tonight the darkness felt heavier than usual, as if it had a weight of its own. A single candle burned on the small table in front of her. Its flame shook weakly every time the cold wind slipped in through the cracked window. Shadows crawled along the walls, making the empty house feel even lonelier. Her hands trembled as she held them close to the flame, not just from the cold, but from hunger. She hadn't eaten properly all day. The little money she once had was gone, spent on bread, medicine, and survival. Christmas was no longer something she could afford. She stared at the candle for a long time and whispered to herself, "So this is Christmas now." The house hadn't always been like this. There was a time when these walls had heard laughter, a time when footsteps ran across the floor, when voices filled the rooms, and when a Christmas tree stood proudly near the window, decorated with ornaments made by small hands. Grandma closed her eyes, and memories flooded her heart. She remembered staying awake all night baking cakes, her hands covered in flour, her body tired but her heart full. She remembered wrapping gifts in old newspapers when money was tight, carefully folding the paper so it would look special. She remembered pretending everything was perfect, just so the children would feel happy. Back then, Christmas meant family. Now it meant silence. The clock on the wall had stopped years ago, but Grandma still looked at it out of habit. Time no longer mattered. Days blended into nights, and nights into endless waiting. Her children were gone. Some had moved far away, chasing better lives. Some had simply drifted away with time. Phone calls became rare. Visits turned into excuses. And one day, even the excuses stopped coming. Not because they were cruel, but because life moved on without her. She never complained. She never asked for help. She believed that if she stayed quiet, she wouldn't be a burden to anyone. Outside, the sound of car engines and laughter echoed through the street. Christmas songs played loudly somewhere nearby. People passed her house without noticing it, their eyes fixed on brighter places. Grandma pulled her shawl tighter and leaned back against the chair. Her stomach growled softly, but she ignored it. She was used to ignoring pain. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, folded photograph. It was old and worn, its edges torn with time. In the picture, she stood smiling beside a Christmas tree, surrounded by people who once called this house home. Her fingers traced the image gently. "Where did we all go wrong?" she whispered. The candle flickered suddenly, almost going out. Grandma quickly leaned forward, shielding it with her hands. The thought of complete darkness terrified her more than the cold. "If this candle goes out," she murmured, "there will be nothing left." Outside, church bells rang in the distance, announcing Christmas night. Their sound floated through the air, beautiful and painful at the same time. Grandma closed her eyes, a tear slowly rolling down her cheek. "I don't need gifts," she said softly. "I don't need a parties." She paused, her voice breaking. "I just don't want to be alone." The candle continued to burn, weak but alive, just like her, unnoticed by the world, unseen by the city. Grandma sat in the darkness as Christmas passed her by, unaware that this night, which began in silence, was slowly moving toward something she never expected, something that would change everything. Grandma did not notice the night slipping by. Outside, the laughter and music of the city grew distant, replaced by the soft crunch of snow under footsteps that no longer belonged to her family. She had long stopped expecting anyone to knock at her door, and yet a small, faint hope stirred somewhere deep inside her chest, like a fragile ember struggling against the wind. Hours passed, the candle flickered, casting shadows that danced across the peeling wallpaper and worn furniture. Every creak of the floorboards, Every sigh of the wind through the cracks reminded her that she was utterly alone. She hugged herself tighter, wishing the cold would ease her loneliness. It did not. The hunger in her stomach was sharp and unrelenting, and her body ached from sitting in the same chair for hours. Yet she remained still, afraid that any movement would shatter the fragile balance she maintained between despair and survival. Somewhere far away, children laughed, tearing wrapping paper with gleeful abandon. Somewhere, families exchanged warm embraces and secret smiles. Somewhere, the lights of Christmas trees reflected in eyes full of joy. And somewhere, across the street from the brightest houses, Grandma's dark little home went unnoticed, as though the world had decided she did not deserve to exist on this festive night. She reached for the photograph again. This time, her hands trembled more than ever. In it, she saw faces that were gone now, her children, her grandchildren, young and laughing, gathered around a tree that smelled faintly of pine and cinnamon. The picture seemed impossibly small in her hands, yet it carried the weight of decades. Memories of birthday cakes, holidays, snow-covered evenings, and whispered bedtime stories returned with bittersweet clarity. "I remember when this house was full of life," she whispered, "when laughter never stopped, when someone always cared, when Christmas meant love, not silence." She paused, letting the words sink into the empty room. The shadows seemed to lean closer, almost listening. The cold wind rattled the window panes, as if mocking her grief. She pressed the photo to her chest, wishing she could turn back time. She wished for just one more hug, one more hand to hold, one more voice to call her grandma with warmth. Then she heard it, a faint sound outside. At first, she thought it was her imagination. A soft crunch of footsteps on snow, the delicate sound of someone moving cautiously. She froze, heart thudding, eyes straining in the candlelight. Whoever it was, they were approaching. She tiptoed to the window, peering through the icy glass. Her breath fogged up the pane, and for a moment, the figure outside was nothing more than a shadow. But as the figure came closer, she realized it was a small child, no older than 10, dressed in a bright red coat and a knitted hat that covered most of her face. She carried something in her hands, a small box, wrapped unevenly with paper that had clearly been reused many times, tied with a thin ribbon. Grandma's heart skipped a beat. The child stopped at the gate, looked up at the dark house, and whispered something inaudible, as if afraid to disturb the cold night. Then she knocked gently and knocked again. Each tap was deliberate, patient, persistent. For a moment, Grandma could not move. Her hands shook, her mind raced. Could this be real? Did someone actually come here, to her lonely, forgotten home? In the middle of Christmas night, her pulse quickened, slowly, almost reluctantly. She shuffled to the door and opened it. The child's eyes were bright and wide, a spark of determination in the midst of winter's chill. She extended the small box toward Grandma. "Merry Christmas, ma'am," she said softly, her voice trembling just slightly. I wanted to give you this." Grandma looked down at the box. So simple, so small, yet something about it made her chest tighten. "For me," she whispered, tears welled in her eyes. "But why?" The girl smiled faintly. "Because no one should be alone on Christmas. Everyone deserves a little light. Everyone deserves to feel remembered." Grandma's voice caught in her throat. She wanted to protest, to tell the child that there was nothing inside the house, nothing worth celebrating, nothing to share. Yet, without realizing it, she found herself stepping aside and letting the little girl in. The warmth of the child's presence seemed to chase the chill away, at least a little. The candle on the table flickered brighter, as if sensing that the darkness was beginning to fade. Grandma sat down, and the child placed the small box in front of her. Inside were simple things, candies, a handmade ornament, a small card with uneven handwriting. But to Grandma, it was more than gifts. It was acknowledgement, it was hope. It was proof that she still existed in the world, that someone remembered her, that she mattered. I don't know what to say," Grandma whispered, tears streaming freely now. "No one has ever done this for me." The girl shook her head. "It's Christmas. That's all that matters. You don't need words, just smile." Grandma's lips trembled, and for the first time in what felt like decades, the smile was fragile, hesitant, but it was real. And in that moment, She felt something she hadn't felt in years: connection. Someone had noticed her, someone cared. Then, from the corner of her eye, she saw movement outside the window. One by one, other neighbors appeared, carrying candles, blankets, hot food, small gifts, and even a portable heater. They were quiet at first, but each step was deliberate, careful, a silent promise that she would not be alone tonight. Her heart raced. She could hardly believe her eyes. Faces that she recognized, neighbors who had once waved politely from across the street, were now standing before her house, smiling, offering warmth and light. They worked together, quickly fixing the small broken lights on her porch, placing candles on the windowsill, and setting up a small table with food. The dark, cold house began to glow, slowly at first, and then brightly, as if the walls themselves were waking from a long sleep. Grandma sat in her chair, overwhelmed. All this for me," she whispered, her voice cracked. "Why?" One of the neighbors, an older man she had known for years, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Because you matter. No one should ever spend Christmas alone if we can help it. Not in this neighborhood, not while we breathe." Grandma felt tears spill down her cheeks. The cold that had settled in her bones for years seemed to melt a little, replaced by warmth she had almost forgotten existed. The sound of laughter and chatter filled the room as the neighbors arranged everything, and she realized she had a choice. She could stay in her corner, afraid and withdrawn, or she could step forward and let this night become something she would never forget. Slowly, she rose from her chair, feeling the ache in her legs, but also feeling something stronger: hope. She looked around at the faces of people who had come not out of duty, not out of obligation, but out of genuine care. And she smiled, a smile that reached her eyes, a smile that said she was no longer invisible, no longer forgot, no longer alone. Outside, the first snowflakes began to fall, gentle and quiet, covering the street in a soft white blanket. Inside, Grandma finally felt the true spirit of Christmas, not in gifts or decorations, but in the hearts of people who chose to remember her. For the first time in years, she laughed, a sound so pure and full of life that it seemed to echo far beyond the walls of her little house. The neighbors joined in, and soon the entire street was filled with music, laughter and warmth, wrapping the little house in light and love. And Grandma knew, in that moment, that no matter how dark a night may seem, even a single candle or a single act of kindness could chase away the deepest shadows. She held the small box to her chest and whispered, thank you all. I will never forget this night." And somewhere deep in her heart, Grandma made a quiet promise to herself. She would carry this light, this hope, into every day that followed. Because Christmas was no longer just a night on the calendar. It was a memory, a feeling, and a reason to believe that she was still part of the world. Grandma had never imagined walking out of her little, dark house on Christmas night, yet there she was, her frail hands trembling as she held the hand of the young girl who had started this miracle. Outside, the street was glowing softly, with snow reflecting the warm lights of the neighboring houses. The cold air bit at her cheeks, but it no longer felt unbearable. For the first time in years, the world did not seem so lonely. "Are you ready?" the girl asked, looking up at her with bright eyes. Grandma nodded, barely able to speak. Her heart raced, not from the cold, but from anticipation. A party, a real Christmas party, not the lonely, silent nights she had endured for decades, but one full of music, laughter, and warmth. They walked slowly through the snow-covered street. Each step seemed heavier than the last, not because of the weight of her body, but because of the disbelief she carried in her heart. Could this truly be happening? Could people really care this much? She had spent so many years thinking she was invisible, a forgotten relic in a world moving too fast. And now, here she was, being guided by a child, surrounded by neighbors she barely knew, yet who smiled at her as though she were royalty. The girl led her to a small community hall at the end of the street, a place Grandma had passed countless times but had never entered. Tonight, the hall was transformed. Twinkling fairy lights hung from the ceiling, bouncing off ornaments on a towering Christmas tree at the center. A small table was laden with cake, cookies, and warm food. Music played softly in the background, but the sound was not overwhelming. It was inviting, like a gentle hand pulling her into warmth. Grandma paused at the entrance. Hesitant, the murmurs and laughter from inside felt foreign and yet enticing. She had not been around so many people in years. Her body tensed, unsure if she could bear the attention, unsure if she deserved it. Then a voice called out, "Grandma, over here." It was Emily again, the child who had brought the first spark of hope. She waved her hands toward a chair placed in the center. Draped with a soft blanket, around the chair, neighbors gathered, smiling warmly, their eyes filled with genuine joy and compassion. Grandma's chest tightened. She could hardly believe it. This was not just a party. This was a welcome, a declaration that she was seen. She was loved. She was part of something bigger than herself. One of the neighbors stepped forward, carrying a small box wrapped in bright paper. "For you," he said gently. "We wanted you to have the first gift tonight." Grandma's hands shook as she took the box. Inside was a handmade ornament, decorated with glitter and tiny painted stars. Beneath it was a note, written in careful, uneven handwriting, "Grandma, you are our Christmas light." Tears spilled down her cheeks. She had never expected anything like this, not in her wildest dreams. The small ornament was more than decoration. It was a symbol. It was proof that someone, anyone, had remembered her, had thought about her, had gone out of their way to bring her joy. The music shifted then to a soft, familiar tune, "Silent Night." Someone brought a small microphone, and the neighbors began to sing. The room filled with voices, young and old, blending into harmony. Emily tugged at Grandma's hand. "Come on, Grandma, dance with us." Grandma laughed, a small, shaky sound at first. She looked down at her frail body, unsure if she could, but the warmth of the room, the love radiating from the people around her, urged her forward. Slowly she stood, feeling the cold melt away from her bones. Replaced with something she had forgotten, energy. She began to sway gently, following the rhythm, and soon the laughter of those around her encouraged her to move more freely. Children ran past her, giggling, while adults clapped and sang. Someone handed her a warm cup of tea, and the aroma reminded her of her youth, of Christmases past, of love and care she had given and received. Every sip felt like a hug. Every laugh felt like a heartbeat returning to a life she had almost surrendered. The cake was brought out, its sweet aroma filling the hall. Neighbors encouraged her to cut the first slice. Her hands trembled as she held the knife, but everyone watched with supportive smiles. When she lifted the knife and cut the slice, applause erupted. It was a simple act, yet to Grandma, it meant the world. She realized that in this room, she belonged. She was not alone. She was cherished. Emily climbed onto a chair beside her. "See, I told you Christmas isn't just about gifts or lights. It's about love." Grandma hugged the child, tears flowing freely now. "I never thought I'd feel this way again." She whispered, "I thought I was invisible. I thought I was forgotten." "You're not," Emily said simply. "Not tonight, not ever." As the night went on, more neighbors arrived, each bringing something small but meaningful. A blanket, a basket of fruit, a hand-knitted scarf. Each gift carried thought, effort, and heart. Grandma accepted them with gratitude, but more than anything, she absorbed the energy in the room, the warmth, the laughter, the love that filled every corner. Somewhere in the background, someone started a game of charades. Grandma watched, hesitant at first, then joined in. Her laughter grew louder, richer, blending with the symphony of joy around her. She had not realized how much she had missed human connection, how deeply the absence of love had wounded her soul. Tonight, every wound was being healed, stitch by stitch, by the genuine care of strangers who had become friends. As the clock in the hall struck 10, the neighbors gathered around the Christmas tree for one final song. Hands joined together, voices harmonized, and Grandma felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. She could feel the tension that had lived inside her for decades dissolve, replaced by something lighter, warmer, and infinitely brighter. For the first time in years, Grandma's eyes were not filled with tears of loneliness, but with tears of gratitude and joy. She realized that the true magic of Christmas was not the lights, the music, or even the gifts. It was the connection, the act of remembering someone, of seeing them, of making them feel loved. By the time the song ended, Grandma's chest ached, not from sadness, but from the fullness of her heart. She had arrived that night expecting nothing, fearing everything. And yet, she had received the greatest gift of all, the realization that she was not alone, that she was valued, and that love could appear in the most unexpected forms. The night was far from over, yet for Grandma, something profound had already shifted. She knew that this Christmas would stay with her forever, not because of the cake or the gifts, but because of the hearts that had opened to her, reminding her that even in the darkest moments, light could be found. As she sat down to enjoy her tea, laughing at a joke a neighbor had made, she thought of the years she had endured in silence, of the cold nights spent alone, and she promised herself, silently, that she would carry this warmth forward, not just in memory, but in her spirit, in every gesture of love she could give from now on. Grandma had come to the party expecting nothing, and yet, in the midst of music, laughter, and the gentle glow of fairy lights, she discovered something more precious than any material gift. She had rediscovered life itself. Grandma had never imagined herself laughing so freely. The music, which had seemed like a distant echo in her lonely house, now wrapped around her like a warm blanket. She swayed gently to the rhythm, letting the melody guide her, her frail hands trembling at first, then gradually moving with confidence. Each note seemed to carry away the weight of years spent in silence, in darkness, in solitude. Children darted around her, their laughter infectious. They tugged at her shawl, asking her to play little games, to guess their riddles, to join in their antics. At first, she hesitated, unsure of how to interact with so many people at once. But their pure, unself-conscious joy was irresistible. She found herself kneeling down to their level, smiling, listening, and even teasing a little, her eyes sparkling with a warmth she hadn't felt in decades. Neighbors shared stories, and Grandma listened intently. She realized she remembered their names, their faces, their quirks. How had she forgotten all this? How had the world moved so fast, while she remained frozen in her tiny corner, unnoticed and unheard? And yet, tonight, it all seemed to converge in one perfect moment. She was remembered, celebrated, and included. The children dragged her toward a small makeshift dance floor. A lively tune played, and before she realized it, Grandma was spinning gently, her laughter mingling with the surrounding cheer. Someone placed a soft scarf around her shoulders, and the warmth spread through her body, like sunlight breaking through clouds. Every smile she received, every clap, every word of encouragement reinforced a truth she had long abandoned. She belonged. She was part of something bigger, something beautiful, something alive. The cake was cut, and slices were handed around. When Grandma received her portion, she held it like a treasure. She had not tasted sweetness in so long, not just food, but the sweetness of life, of care, of being seen. The taste lingered, mingling with the sense of cinnamon, pine, and warm tea. Each bite reminded her that this night was more than an event, it was a revelation. At one corner of the room, someone had set up a small game of charades. Grandma watched, amused, as the children exaggerated their movements, acting out animals, songs, and even snowmen. Then, encouraged by the gentle nudges of the neighbors, she joined. Her movements were tentative at first, but soon she was fully immersed, laughing freely, her body swaying, her face glowing. Each laugh, each clap from the children and adults alike, melted away the last traces of the loneliness that had weighed on her for so long. The evening carried on with storytelling, music, and small performances. A young boy played the piano, a girl sang softly, and Grandma clapped and hummed along. Her heart swelled as she realized the depth of thought, effort, and love that had gone into making this night perfect. Not just decorations or food, but the intention, the energy, and the compassion. Every person in that room had contributed a piece of themselves to make her feel cherished. At some point, someone suggested a group photo. Grandma stood at the center, slightly unsure, her hands resting on the shoulders of the children closest to her. Flashlights went off, cameras clicked, and she felt a strange combination of shyness and pride. This was a night that would be remembered, captured and treasured, not just by her, but by everyone who had come together for her. The snow continued to fall gently outside, covering the street in a soft blanket of white. The cold was present, but irrelevant. Inside, warmth, laughter, and love had created a bubble of life, so powerful that even the harshest winter could not pierce it. Grandma leaned back in her chair for a moment, taking it all in: the lights, the music, the laughter, the community. She realized that she had been missing this connection all along, and that even a single night could revive a heart long dormant. Grandma sat quietly for a moment, still holding her teacup, letting the warmth seep into her trembling hands. The hall had quieted down after the games and songs, but her heart was still racing. She could hear the faint hum of music in the background, laughter slowly fading, and the soft murmur of conversation. For the first time in decades, she felt something she thought she had lost forever: a sense of belonging. The young girl, Emily, tugged at her sleeve. "Grandma, come on. Everyone wants to see you share your story." Grandma hesitated. She had not shared her life with strangers in years. She was used to silence, used to being invisible. Yet, looking around at the faces of the people who had come together for her, neighbors, children, adults, she felt a surge of courage. Perhaps tonight she could speak. Perhaps tonight she could let them know what these moments meant to her. Taking a deep breath, she stood. Her legs ached, her hands trembled, but she felt stronger than she had in a long time. She walked to the center of the hall, where a small spotlight illuminated the Christmas tree. Everyone turned to her, and the room fell silent. The sheer attention was overwhelming. Yet in that silence, she felt a warmth that chased away every shadow of fear she had ever carried. I don't know what to say," Grandma began, her voice soft but steadying with every word. "I have spent many Christmases alone. I have watched the lights, the parties, the laughter, and felt invisible. Forgot, not because anyone wanted to forget me, but because life moves too fast for some of us. And for years, I thought I was meant to be alone." Tears filled her eyes, but she did not look away. She looked at the children, the neighbors, everyone who had gathered. "But tonight I have learned something I will never forget. I have learned that kindness exists, that love exists, and that even when you feel invisible, there are people who can see you, people who can bring light into the darkest night. You, all of you, have given me the greatest gift anyone could ever give." Her voice cracked and she paused, letting the words settle in the hearts of everyone present. A child ran forward, hugging her leg, and she bent down to embrace him. The laughter and sniffles of the children echoed in the hall, and Grandma smiled through her tears. "You have reminded me that life is not about the years we spend in darkness," she continued, "but about the moments when light finds us, even when we least expect it. Tonight I feel alive again. I feel hope, I feel home." A murmur of appreciation ran through the crowd. Some wiped away tears, some smiled warmly, and some simply nodded, acknowledging the truth in her words. For Grandma, this was not just applause. It was a recognition of her journey, her pain, and her resilience. Emily tugged at her hand again. "Come, Grandma, let's dance one more time." Grandma laughed, a clear, full laugh that filled the hall. She allowed herself to be led back to the small dance floor. The neighbors clapped, encouraging her, smiling with genuine joy. Slowly, she began to sway, then twirl, letting herself be carried by the rhythm. For the first time, she danced without fear or hesitation. Her heart beat in tune with the music, her body moving with a freedom she had not known for years. Around her, people joined in. The room became a sea of movement, laughter and light. The children clung to her sides. Adults formed circles around her, and the hall seemed to pulse with life. Every step she took, every smile she shared, every laugh she gave reaffirmed a truth she had almost forgotten. She mattered. She belonged. She was not alone. The cake was brought out again for a final celebration. Grandma cut the slices herself this time, handing them to neighbors, children, and Emily. The simple act of giving felt like a blessing. She realized that generosity was not measured by wealth, but by presence, care, and attention. Grandma woke the next morning to a world that seemed almost new. The snow had settled overnight, covering the street in a soft white blanket, sparkling under the pale winter sun. For years, she had dreaded mornings like this, where the cold seemed sharper, the silence heavier, and the house felt emptier than the night before. But today was different. Today, The world outside seemed alive in a way she hadn't felt in decades. Her small home, once dark and forgotten, now felt warm even without lights. The memory of the night before, the laughter, the music, the shared moments, filled the air with an invisible glow. Grandma moved slowly through her rooms, noticing for the first time the little details she had ignored. The chipped teacup on the table, the faded rug that had softened under her steps, the sunlight filtering through the thin curtains. Each detail seemed to carry a promise, a reminder that life still had color, even in the quietest corners. She sat by the window, wrapped in her old shawl, and thought about Emily. The small girl's courage had sparked something profound in her. One act of kindness had grown into a ripple, touching every neighbor and filling her heart with warmth. Grandma realized that the smallest gestures could change lives in ways that were unimaginable. She smiled, remembering the way Emily had tugged her hand, insisting she join in the dance, insisting she see the joy she deserved to feel. The doorbell rang softly, startling her. She shuffled to the door and opened it to find a basket of fresh bread, some fruits, and a note. "For you, Grandma, from your neighbors who care. May this remind you of last night's light." Tears welled in her eyes. Even in the daylight, the love from the previous night lingered. She felt seen, acknowledged, and profoundly grateful. Grandma decided to walk outside. For years, she had avoided the streets, feeling invisible, believing she had nothing to offer and nothing to receive. But now, with the snow crunching beneath her feet and the sun warming her face, she felt lighter. She waved at her neighbors who were shoveling snow, carrying groceries, and going about their morning routines. They waved back, smiles warm and genuine. She realized that she was no longer invisible. She belonged. She had been woven back into the fabric of her community, stitched together by love and remembrance. Later that day, the children from the party came over to deliver small handmade gifts. Emily ran to her beaming. "Grandma, look what we made for you." Grandma knelt down, her eyes glistening. She held the crafts gently, as though they were precious treasures, and in many ways, they were, each gift, each gesture, represented connection, hope, and the knowledge that she was not alone. The children crowded around her, asking for stories about past Christmases. Grandma realized she had never shared her stories with anyone in years. Now, there were listeners eager to hear her memories. She smiled, began speaking, and soon the room was filled with laughter, awe, and excitement as she recounted tales of winters long ago, of handmade decorations, of cakes baked with love, and of family moments she had cherished deeply. Time seemed to slow as Grandma shared, and she felt a freedom she had not known for decades. Her voice grew stronger, more confident, each word carrying warmth, wisdom, and joy. The children listened with wide eyes. Adults smiled knowingly, and for the first time, she felt the power of her own story. She was no longer defined by years of solitude, but by the moments she created and shared. Days passed, and the glow of that Christmas night continued to transform her life. Neighbors stopped by, not out of obligation, but out of genuine care. They shared tea, laughed over small games, and simply spent time together. Grandma found herself baking again, sharing slices of bread and cake with anyone who came by. Her home, once silent and cold, became a place of warmth, joy, and connection. The ornaments from Emily and the neighbors adorned her home, a reminder of the love and effort that had rekindled her spirit. Each morning, she would sit by the window, looking at the tree and ornaments, and remember the night that changed everything. She realized that Christmas had always been about more than gifts or decorations. It had been about the heart, about community, about the choice to notice those who might otherwise remain unseen. Grandma also began writing letters of gratitude to those who had made her night unforgettable, notes of encouragement to children in the neighborhood, and small messages of love to anyone who needed them. She discovered that giving, even in the smallest ways, brought an immense sense of fulfillment and joy. She had learned that kindness was not just something to receive, but something to extend. Weeks later, Grandma was invited to help organize the next community Christmas celebration. She hesitated at first, unsure if she could, but Emily and the neighbors encouraged her. "You know what it means to feel remembered," Emily said, You can help others feel the same way." Grandma agreed. She found joy in planning, sharing ideas, and helping the younger children decorate. She shared her stories, her wisdom, and her newfound perspective on life. The community listened, valued her input, and honored her experience. She realized that her life, once thought to be fading into silence, had found a new purpose. She had become a beacon for others, a living example of hope, resilience, and the transformative power of love. One evening, as she sat quietly, reflecting on everything that had changed, Grandma whispered to herself, "I thought I had lost everything, but I have been given more than I could ever imagine. Love, warmth, belonging, a family that chose me. I will never forget this. I will carry it with me always." The sun set, casting a golden glow through her window. Grandma looked at her reflection in the glass. For the first time in years, she saw not a lonely, forgotten woman, but a survivor, a storyteller, a cherished member of a community who had seen her, remembered her, and reminded her of the beauty of life. That night, she lit a candle, not because of darkness, but because she had learned that light, once kindled, could never truly be extinguished. It burned inside her now, a permanent flame, a testament to hope, love, and the magic that arises when people choose to care. Grandma smiled, wrapped herself in her shawl, and whispered softly into the night, "Thank you for reminding me that I am alive. I am seen, I am loved, and I will never forget." And so, the Christmas that began in darkness had transformed into a lifelong glow of love and connection. A Christmas that saved Grandma, not with gifts or decorations, but with the simple, powerful act of human kindness. Grandma woke to the soft glow of morning sunlight streaming through her window, the warmth caressing her face in a way she hadn't felt in decades. The memories of the Christmas night were vivid in her mind. The laughter, the music, the faces that had smiled at her, the hands that had reached out when she had felt invisible. The events of that night had changed something deep within her. She no longer felt the weight of solitude pressing down on her chest. Instead, a gentle sense of purpose had begun to bloom. As she prepared her morning tea, Grandma reflected on the days that followed the party. The neighborhood had not forgotten her. Small gestures continued. Children stopped by to share their schoolwork or handmade drawings. Neighbors offered freshly baked bread or warm blankets. And even the adults who had once been strangers now sought her stories and company. For the first time, she understood that the power of connection extended far beyond a single night. It was the consistent threads of care that wove people together. She smiled softly as she looked at her little Christmas tree, still standing proudly in the corner, adorned with ornaments gifted by Emily and the neighbors. Each decoration held a story, a memory of laughter, of joy, of being seen. She reached for the star ornament Emily had given her, gently touching its edges, as if feeling the love embedded in it. Her heart swelled. She realized that Christmas was not a moment in time, it was a feeling, a memory, a lesson that could last a lifetime. Later that morning, she heard a knock at the door. She opened it to find Emily, holding a small notebook. "Grandma, I thought maybe you'd like to write down your stories. You can tell me about all the Christmases you've lived through." Grandma laughed softly, a warm, melodious sound that seemed to echo through the house. "All my stories?" she asked. "Yes," Emily said, eyes shining. "And then maybe we can share them with everyone, so no one forgets how special you are." Grandma felt a lump in her throat. She had spent years silent, believing her experiences and memories had little value. But now, with the encouragement of this little girl, she understood that her life had meaning. Every memory, every hardship, every joy was worth sharing. She sat at the table, opened the notebook, and began to write, slowly at first, her pen tracing shaky lines, then with growing confidence as the memories poured out. She wrote about winters long ago, the cakes she had baked, the handmade decorations, the family moments that had once filled her home with warmth. She wrote about loneliness and about the dark nights when she felt forgotten. But she also wrote about hope, the night the community had brought her back to life, the laughter that had once again filled her heart, the realization that kindness could change a person's world in ways unimaginable. Hours passed, but Grandma did not notice. Emily sat beside her, occasionally asking questions. gently encouraging her and laughing at the little jokes that had crept into the stories. The process was healing. With every word she wrote, Grandma felt her spirit grow lighter. She understood that the act of sharing, of passing on memories, was itself a gift, a way to ensure that the light of love she had received would continue to shine. By late afternoon, a small group of neighbors arrived, curious about the stories she was compiling. They listened intently as Grandma read aloud. Her voice, once quiet and hesitant, now carried the richness of lived experience, of resilience, of lessons learned. The children laughed at her humorous anecdotes, adults nodded at her wisdom, and everyone was moved by the sincerity and depth of her reflections. For the first time, Grandma understood that her life mattered, not for the material things she had, not for the attention she had lacked, but for the love she could give, and the memories she could share. Weeks passed, but the warmth of that miraculous Christmas night remained alive in Grandma's heart. Every morning, she woke with a renewed sense of purpose, a spark she hadn't known in decades. Her home, once quiet and shadowed, was now alive with laughter, conversation, and the scent of baked goods. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was deep, spiritual. Grandma carried a light within her that radiated outward, touching everyone she met. One chilly afternoon, Emily and a group of children arrived with a small, hand-painted sign, Grandma's Christmas Corner, a place of joy and stories. Grandma laughed, a rich melodic sound that filled the room. She looked around at the children's eager faces, the notebooks they carried, and the excitement in their eyes. "You want me to tell stories again?" she asked. "Yes," Emily replied, tugging at her sleeve. "We want to learn about all the Christmases you've lived, the recipes you've made, the traditions you've cherished, and we want to share it with everyone." Grandma nodded, her heart swelling. She realized that her life, once thought to be fading into silence, had now become a beacon for others. She spent the afternoon recounting tales of winters long ago, of homemade decorations, of cakes baked with love, and lessons learned from life's challenges. The children listened with rapt attention, occasionally giggling at her playful anecdotes, occasionally wide-eyed at her wisdom. Her stories became more than entertainment. They were lessons in resilience, hope, and the power of community. Grandma realized that the magic of Christmas was not just in the gifts or lights, but in the sharing of experiences, in connecting hearts, in giving and receiving love. The neighbors began to join regularly, bringing food, helping with crafts, and sharing their own stories. Grandma's home became a sanctuary, a place where loneliness could not survive. She had learned that the truest form of celebration was one where everyone felt seen, valued, and loved. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the snow-covered street, Grandma sat by the window with Emily. The girl held her hand tightly. "Grandma," she said softly, "thank you for sharing your stories. I think everyone in the neighborhood feels happier because of you." Grandma's eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of joy, gratitude, and fulfillment. She realized that the love she had received on that one miraculous Christmas night had now multiplied 1,000-fold. Her home, her stories, her kindness, they were creating ripples, reaching far beyond her imagination. I never thought I'd be able to give back like this," Grandma whispered, "but now I see. When someone shows you love, it inspires you to pass it on. And that is the true magic of Christmas." As the years went on, Grandma continued her tradition. Every Christmas, she invited the children and neighbors to her home. They decorated the tree together, baked cookies, shared stories, and celebrated the season in a way that was heartfelt and meaningful. The once forgotten woman at the end of the street had become the heart of her community, a symbol of hope, resilience, and the transformative power of love. Even those who had been strangers now referred to her with warmth and respect. She had built a legacy not through wealth, power, or material gifts, but through compassion, presence, and the courage to embrace life despite past loneliness. One particularly snowy evening, as Grandma tucked Emily into bed after a long day of festivities, she whispered, "Remember this, my dear, Christmas isn't about the presents, the lights, or even the music. It's about love, about remembering others. about creating moments that make hearts feel alive. That is the gift we carry with us forever. Weeks passed, but the warmth of that miraculous Christmas night remained alive in Grandma's heart. Every morning, she woke with a renewed sense of purpose, a spark she hadn't known in decades. Her home, once quiet and shadowed, was now alive with laughter, conversation, and the scent of baked goods. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was deep, spiritual. Grandma carried a light within her that radiated outward, touching everyone she met. One chilly afternoon, Emily and a group of children arrived with a small, hand-painted sign, "Grandma's Christmas Corner, a place of joy and stories." Grandma laughed, a rich melodic sound that filled the room. She looked around at the children's eager faces, the notebooks they carried, and the excitement in their eyes. "You want me to tell stories again?" she asked. "Yes," Emily replied, tugging at her sleeve. "We want to learn about all the Christmases you've lived, the recipes you've made, the traditions you've cherished, and we want to share it with everyone." Grandma nodded, her heart swelling. She realized that her life, once thought to be fading into silence, had now become a beacon for others. She spent the afternoon recounting tales of winters long ago, of homemade decorations, of cakes baked with love, and lessons learned from life's challenges. The children listened with rapt attention, occasionally giggling at her playful anecdotes, occasionally wide-eyed at her wisdom. Her stories became more than entertainment. They were lessons in resilience, hope, and the power of community. Grandma realized that the magic of Christmas was not just in the gifts or lights, but in the sharing of experiences, in connecting hearts, in giving and receiving love. The neighbors began to join regularly, bringing food, helping with crafts, and sharing their own stories. Grandma's home became a sanctuary, a place where loneliness could not survive. She had learned that the truest form of celebration was one where everyone felt seen, valued, and loved. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the snow-covered street, Grandma sat by the window with Emily. The girl held her hand tightly. "Grandma," she said softly, "thank you for sharing your stories. I think everyone in the neighborhood feels happier because of you." Grandma's eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of joy, gratitude, and fulfillment. She realized that the love she had received on that one miraculous Christmas night had now multiplied 1,000-fold. Her home, her stories, her kindness, they were creating ripples, reaching far beyond her imagination. I never thought I'd be able to give back like this," Grandma whispered, "but now I see. When someone shows you love, it inspires you to pass it on. And that is the true magic of Christmas." As the years went on, Grandma continued her tradition. Every Christmas, she invited the children and neighbors to her home. They decorated the tree together, baked cookies, shared stories, and celebrated the season in a way that was heartfelt and meaningful. The once forgotten woman at the end of the street had become the heart of her community, a symbol of hope, resilience, and the transformative power of love. Even those who had been strangers now referred to her with warmth and respect. She had built a legacy not through wealth, power, or material gifts, but through compassion, presence, and the courage to embrace life despite past loneliness. One particularly snowy evening, as Grandma tucked Emily into bed after a long day of festivities, she whispered, "Remember this, my dear, Christmas isn't about the presents, the lights, or even the music. It's about love, about remembering others, about creating moments that make hearts feel alive. That is the gift we carry with us forever." The final Christmas arrived, a year after the miraculous night that had transformed Grandma's life. Snow fell gently, blanketing the streets and rooftops in white, while warm light spilled from the windows of the neighborhood homes. Grandma stood by her window, looking out at the sparkling world, her heart filled with a quiet joy she had never known in all her decades. Her home, once silent and cold, was alive with energy. Children's laughter echoed through the halls, neighbors stopped by to deliver warm treats, and music floated softly from the radio, blending with the murmur of cheerful conversation. Every corner of the house carried a memory, a lesson, a piece of the miraculous night that had begun this new chapter in her life. Emily ran up to her, carrying a small bundle of hand-decorated ornaments. "Grandma, help us decorate the tree." Grandma's eyes twinkled. She took the ornaments gently, holding them as though they were treasures. Because in a way they were. They symbolized love, connection, and the community that had revived her spirit. Together, they placed each ornament carefully on the tree, the children laughing at every tilted decoration, the adults joining in with smiles and gentle laughter. As the room filled with warmth, Grandma reflected on the past year. The darkness she had once carried so heavily now seemed like a distant memory. She had learned that life's true gifts were not material. They were love, connection, kindness, and the courage to be seen. She had been invisible for so long, but now she radiated life, and her home had become a sanctuary for anyone who needed warmth and joy. Neighbors began arriving, carrying gifts, cookies, and small homemade decorations. The air was filled with the aroma of baked goods, pine and candlelight. Each arrival brought laughter, stories, and hugs, reinforcing the sense of belonging that had once seemed impossible to Grandma. She felt an overwhelming gratitude, knowing that this love, this joy, had been created through the collective kindness of those around her. Emily tugged at her hand. "Grandma, come on, everyone's waiting for you to read your story." Grandma nodded, her heart swelling. She had written her life stories over the past year, compiling memories, lessons, and reflections into a single notebook. Today, she would share them with the entire community. As she began to read, her voice was steady, warm, and full of emotion. She recounted tales of winters long past, lessons learned from solitude, the magic of the first Christmas night she had spent surrounded by love, and the profound impact of community. Children listened with wide eyes, adults nodded with admiration, and everyone felt the sincerity in her words. For Grandma, this was more than storytelling. It was a declaration of her journey, a testament to resilience, and a celebration of the love that had transformed her life. As she finished reading, a hush fell over the room. Then slowly, applause erupted. Neighbors, young and old, cheered and clapped, hugging her, thanking her for sharing, and celebrating the life she now led. Grandma felt tears welling in her eyes, not of sorrow, but of profound joy and fulfillment. She realized that her life, once thought ordinary and overlooked, had become extraordinary through love, connection, and the courage to embrace hope. Someone brought out a cake, candles flickering softly in the evening light. Grandma cut the first slice, handing it to Emily, and then distributed it among the neighbors. Each bite carried a reminder of togetherness, of celebration, and of the miraculous journey she had undergone. As the night progressed, music played, children danced, and neighbors sang together. Grandma joined, moving gracefully, laughing freely, her heart fully alive. She had found joy not just in receiving love, but in giving it back, in creating moments that others would cherish as much as she did. At one point, Emily tugged at her, guiding her to the front of the room. "Grandma, everyone wants to hear your final message for this Christmas." Grandma looked around at the faces, young and old, and smiled. She felt the weight of her years lift entirely, replaced by a clarity she had not known in decades. "Christmas," she said softly but firmly, "is not about gifts, lights, or decorations. It is about love. It is about seeing others, remembering them, and sharing kindness. Tonight, we celebrate not just a holiday, but a choice, the choice to care, to connect, and to create moments that make hearts feel alive." The room was silent, every listener absorbing her words. Then slowly, the children clapped, adults followed, and the hall filled with warmth and energy, a reflection of the love that had changed her life. Grandma looked at Emily, hugging her tightly. "Thank you for reminding me what life is really about." She whispered, "You gave me courage, and you gave me joy. You will always be my light." Emily smiled, her eyes shining with tears of happiness. "And you are ours, Grandma, always." As midnight approached, the community gathered around the Christmas tree for a final song. Hands joined, voices harmonized, and Grandma stood at the center, feeling the energy and love flow through her. She understood that this night, like the first miraculous Christmas, was more than a celebration. It was a living testament to the power of human connection, hope, and kindness. Snow fell outside, glittering in the soft glow of streetlights, But inside, hearts glowed brighter. Grandma's life had been transformed, her loneliness erased, and her spirit renewed. She had become more than a participant in the celebration. She had become its heart, its beacon, its legacy. As the last notes of the song faded, Grandma whispered into the night, "I am alive, I am seen, I am loved, and I will carry this light forever." The neighbors hugged her, children clung to her, and Emily stood proudly by her side. Grandma's journey, once shadowed by loneliness and invisibility, had come full circle. She had discovered the truest gift of all, the enduring power of love, connection, and the courage to accept life's miracles. And in that quiet, snowy neighborhood, one woman's story became a beacon for all proof that even in the darkest nights, light could be found, hearts could be healed, and love could create a legacy that would endure for generations. Grandma's Christmas was no longer a fleeting moment. It was eternal, living in every smile, every gesture, and every act of kindness she inspired. The miracle of one night had become a lifetime of joy, and the story of a forgotten woman had become the story of hope for everyone around her. And so, in the warmth of community, in the glow of love, and under the twinkling lights of countless Christmas trees, Grandma lived fully, laughed freely, and loved endlessly, her heart forever transformed, her legacy forever bright, and her spirit forever a testament to the magic of kindness and the eternal gift of being truly seen.